Thanks, Bruce.
There you go, buddy. Say
Okay.
something smart.
So before we get started on exhibition night, we'll go over what we got upcoming. So our next meeting will be February 16th. And it is a presentation night. Dawn Wilson will be presenting a talk on winter wildlife.
And she's gonna be virtual, so
She's gonna be virtual, right?
yeah. So
Virtual, but there will be a meeting at the Civic Center for those that want to attend it and see it from there, right?
yeah,
Yes.
we'll meet there. Yeah.
Pending snowfall.
Yeah.
And then March 2nd will be our first competition night of the year. And followed up March 16th will be another presentation night, and Cole Thompson will be doing a talk on why to use black and white. Let's see. Move that one just so I can get to the next one. And then other piece that we have coming up, it is now actually live, is the Lone Tree Show.
Yeah.
The Exploring the Light photo show. So the call has gone live. That's on Cafe. Categories are animals, architecture, landscape, portraits, and still life this year. Dawn Wilson is our judge for the competition, and entry is open until February 24th. That'll be the last day of for submissions, and the April 2nd will be the opening reception there at the Lone Tree Arts Center. You can get all the info, like I said, on the logging into callforentry.org.
And I just posted, Chuck, the link to the call for entry.
Oh, there you go.
For that, so that's
Thanks,
in the chat room.
So yeah, it's down in the chat for everybody to see. Other than that, that's basically our upcomings for the next month. And Michael, are you going to be running you and Karina are running exhibition?
Yeah. Karina, we both have the images downloaded, but he was going to go ahead and do it, and I'll just be there for backup on the images. A couple of real quick shout outs. I was going to say just congratulations, Chuck, on the award for, I'm trying to remember the name of that contest. It was environmental.
The Colorado Environmental Film Festival.
Right. But you had you had first place in the one that everybody voted for, right?
Yes.
The member votes or whatever it was called. So congratulations on that. That was fantastic. Let's see here. And I was going to mention real quick, I know we have I don't know if anybody on here who has workshops coming up. Darren, you have, when do you start your night photography workshops, Darren? Are they?
Yeah, we start them in May, and they run through September, I believe, this year. We've got 2 in Moab, 1 on Mount Evans, and 1 in Yellowstone. The one in the Yellowstone and the Moab workshops are 4 days each, and the one on Mount Evans is it's a 2 classroom 1 night. So you show up to class, we go through some stuff. It's more of an introductory beginner class. So we just basically teach the basics of night photography for people who want to get into it and maybe take it one more step. So you show up at class, we go through a bunch of stuff, we go out, we shoot that night, and then we come back to class the next afternoon and do another classroom session, and that's it. So it's just it's a 1 night, 2 day thing. So
okay, great, thank you. No, I wanted to bring that up because I know
I appreciate it, Michael.
A lot of us that have attended your workshops have benefited quite a bit from that. So so great. And then I was going to mention real quick, I know, go ahead, somebody else was speaking.
No, go ahead, Michael. I was going to ask Darren something, but I can hit him up later.
Okay. The only other thing I was going to bring up is one of our newer members, Randy Lawrence. Do you have a workshop in August down in New Mexico? I think you did that one last year, and we had mentioned it to our group, but you weren't online. I don't know if you want to say a few words about it.
Yeah, the one last year ended up getting canceled at the last minute due to COVID outbreak. But so I'm doing it August 21st to 27th at Ghost Ranch in Abiquiu, New Mexico. If you've never been there, it's got the most amazing landscape, brilliant red rocks, all these petrified trees. It's like this really cool place. And the workshop is called Holistic Photography. And it's about learning to see and sense and take images in a mindful way rather than focusing strictly on technique. It's about just seeing in different ways. And I'll send Michael the information and maybe he can share it with everybody.
Sure. Yep. We'll include that in some of our emails, the group emails and that. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was all I had. Thanks.
All right, so Carino and Michael, you want to go ahead and bring up the images and we'll go from there.
Sure. Now, how do we get switched over to me?
Do we need to allow Bruce? Do we have to have him enabled to share screen?
He's a co-host, so he should.
Okay.
If you go to the bottom of your screen, Carino, there should be a share screen. You may have to pull your mouse down to get it to pop up. To be in the direct center. There you go.
Okay,
You're in charge, buddy. You're in
I
charge.
guess I got control of the bridge, right?
Yep.
So I guess we'll start off with this one here. Yeah, this is a beautiful photo.
So whose image is this?
I don't know. Whose image is this?
That's not one of yours, Darren?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I had my
Okay.
mic muted. Yeah, it's just an image I went back to reprocess. I think I shot it in 2011. So it's a fairly old image. You can't legally shoot at this location anymore because they put up fences and boundaries. So I feel very fortunate that my years growing up on the Oregon coast have benefited me in ways where I was able to, take pictures, explore, go places that people just won't be able to do anymore. So oftentimes I'll find images when I'm looking for other images for potential clients or customers. And I saw this one and I just thought, well, I'm just going to reprocess it and see what I can do with it. So I just threw it up there just to share it.
So what did you do to this? It almost, I can't tell if you used like a neural filter or something to this, or because it looks kind of painterly there on the left side.
On the left, where the water's running down.
The
Yeah,
rocks
is
are
that
in the
just
water.
from the long exposure, or is it something
Yeah.
you did specific?
No, I think it's just, so what I did was when the water, so if you shoot here, there's like a sequence of shots you take. When the water comes up and it's in the big splash mode, that's when you want to start shooting. And then as it recedes down, you just continually shoot and you get the motion of the water going down. I don't know. I can't really see it on my screen. My screen isn't showing it very good. It looks kind of pixelated, but it should be really sharp and shouldn't be any noise to it. So, but
There seems to be, what I'm seeing on my monitor is that it's that the left side doesn't quite match the right side. that the left side does look more painterly, and then the right side, not so much. And I don't know if that was intentional or, and then the background is completely different as well.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
kind of,
don't-
I'm kind of struggling with, I love the composition, I love the colors, but I'm kind of struggling with what is this main subject here? Is it this wonderful water and just being sucked back down? Is it the rock? And I think that paint, what I call painterly, it just looks overly painterly to me, on the left seems to be competing with the rest of the photograph. And that's how I see it. Maybe it's not that pronounced on others' monitors.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll go back and take a look at it. I just literally put this image up to share it, the location with people. So back in 2011, when I was here and I shot this, there's limited space where you can stand and be safe. You can see the water directly in the middle of the very bottom of the frame. That's water that literally comes up, hits the photographer, and rolls back down.
Wow.
So this is one of the reasons why they put a fence up and you can't get to this location anymore. But basically, I was just sharing the location. I like to stand here because you have the rocks that kind of frame Haystack Rock, and I had a nice sunset. There was a storm that had just blew through. You know, definitely not my best work. Shot with a very old camera with low resolution. So, I mean, this image isn't like going anywhere. I was just wanted to share it with you guys, just to say, hey, look, this is where you can go, and you can't go here now. So.
I do
like
love
it.
the contrast to the warm tones, and then the little blue in the water and the blue in the sky. That warm and cool is really neat there, and I really like it.
I like it because I've been trying to learn about landscape, and this is what it said, 1/3 sky and the rest point the camera down, and it's a perfect example of what they're talking about.
Well, you have to work with what you're given, and yeah, rules are meant to be broken, so don't stick too hard to that.
No, but like I said, it's awesome. I think it's an awesome picture. I
Thanks.
like it.
I like the what you got with the whatever shutter speed you chose was really nice, just in terms of what it's doing with the water in that immediate foreground and then over there on the left side. And maybe that's what, when people are talking about the painterly effect, maybe it's that's kind of creating that. I don't know if it's so much on the
because there's no water on the right hand side.
Right.
Yeah. So you see more texture of the rock.
Yeah. That's kind of how I see it. But I like my eyes kind of go to seeing all of what's going on. The water is what's attracting my attention to it, and I like that.
Yeah, that's the I don't know. That's what we like to shoot when we go up there. Is you go in on an incoming tide where the waters and the splashes are going to be high, but not too high, and you wait till they crash and then you shoot them as they're going back down. And every image is different. There's images out there that have water on both sides and whatnot, but this particular night just got the water on one side.
Nice.
So you're really just rubbing this in, is that right, Darren?
No. I mean, this is just exhibition night. I just literally wanted to say, okay,
Oh, yeah,
this is where I grew up. This is my hometown. This is Haystack Rock. This is,
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome location.
I like it. Let's see the next one.
Hi, this is mine. This is Kathy Block, and this is mine. And I think my main question is if this is even interesting enough. It's minimalist. It was taken in Japan. It's the beginning of a tea ceremony. So just want some feedback if it's just too flat, too static, or if there's enough detail to make it interesting.
I myself would get rid of all the scratches on the desk and kind of eliminate those.
Yeah, the scratches are a little distracting. I think for me, a couple things that I see that could help. I don't know if the little, I'm assuming those are maybe tea leaves inside of the bowl. I'm not sure if those are sharp or not. And then I think your camera wasn't perfectly level, and so your paper there on the left-hand side kind of has some distortion to it that you could probably kind of tweak a little bit in with the warp tool or something.
Kathy, I think this might give a little more drama if you kept the board and the whatever that food is and the whisk or whatever sort of boost the brightness or keep it the same, and then darken down the background in some way, try to mask it so that it's not all the same tone. I think you can make this slightly different crop, as Elaine said, and then make it really dramatic with different tones, the things that you want to be the subject, keep them that, like I said, the same tone, and just darken down some of the background.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Any other comments? We'll go to the next one. Whose is this one? Anyone's photo?
Like Keith is trying to talk, but maybe it's on mute. There you go.
There it is. That one's mine, taken in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. It is Mount Helena. It's a antebellum mansion built on top of an Indian mound.
Wow.
I like the big sky feel to this. Almost gives you that, the great wide open, and the house is just kind of, knowing these places, they're pretty sprawling and pretty big, and it just makes it feel like it's just a small little speck in the big sky. One thing I notice is you've got some space there on the left, on the outside of the trees, and that tree over on the right, almost got all of it in frame. You kind of lost the very right edge of that tree. I would say just to be mindful of that. You could crop it in to basically take out those trees on the right, but I think then you would lose some of that big sky feel.
Right.
See, and Chuck likes the big sky. I kind of like it small, right? I'm looking at something maybe framing that mansion with those trees on the right and the left, and eliminating that one tree that's on the right altogether.
Okay.
Taking out both of the ones on the right, then taking it all the way into where the tree on the right, you would just be limited to the one that's up on the hill then?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So maybe it's just me, but in the dark, there's a couple dark spots in the clouds on the right-hand side that look like you've maybe got some chromatic aberrations or something like that in there.
Okay.
Like where it goes from the gray to kind of like the purplish look. There's two spots that kind of stick out on the right-hand side that look like some technical concerns.
An awesome looking subject.
Yeah, you could just use the content aware fill and fix those in about a second.
Oh,
I see what you're talking about. They don't look like dust bunnies. I think they're probably natural in the clouds.
No, these are large spots, Darren.
Yeah, right on the very edge.
No, I'm like pointing on my screen like you guys can see me, right?
Are you talking about the underside of the clouds?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that generally comes from over processing, like too much clarity or too much contrast or
Yeah.
too much detail extractor, something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, they could be softened up a little bit. I see what you're saying.
And it might be causing, if I look really closely at the right side and the upper part of the blue skies, or a little bit of banding across in there. And it may just be on my screen. It may not be there for everybody, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I see that, Michael, and I'm not, for me right now, I'm not sure whether or not I'm seeing things because, we're, on a Zoom and all that kind of stuff, and it's getting a little
Exactly.
pixelated or something like that, and that's what's causing it or not, but yeah,
right.
I agree with you.
I think it's a really lovely image. I'm wondering if maybe using a curves and bringing up some of the highlight in the clouds, just hitting it so that there's more definition. It's not so muddled or so gray overall. I like the overall moodiness of the image, but I see the house very bright, right in that illuminated kind of feeling. And I wonder if maybe touching up some of the clouds would strengthen this image.
I was going to ask you, about the look and feel. Were you going for moody, or what exactly were you going to go for? And this is kind of adding on to Susan's point. You certainly have a true black point, but I'm not sure you have a true white point. And the reason I was asking is maybe that's exactly what you were going for. That you want these yellowish whites instead of a true white. Because if you went with a true white, to Susan's point, then you would really have a lot more contrast in the clouds, dark and light. But right now, maybe perhaps that's exactly what you wanted, was a dark, moody clouds that surround the house. So I'm just kind of curious as to your intention on that.
I was going for a more dark, moody look. The house is rumored to be haunted, which, if you believe in ghosts, hey, but built on the Indian mound, and the fact that it was sunshine when we started photographing, and these clouds came in out of nowhere, I was striving for kind of the dark, moody look to it.
Man, I tell you what, if they built that plantation house on top of an Indian mound like that, I'm sure they do have all sorts of ghosts. Whew,
All kinds of bad luck.
that's bad juju's.
So kind of going on that, you're haunted thing and the moody of the clouds. If you cropped in just to the left of the trees on the right, and then and basically brought down your top also to where you took away that blue sky, and then maybe even give us a black and white treatment, you got yourself basically a Halloween image set up right there for you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's a great point there, Chuck. If you do more of a cinema crop or a pano crop, then you're into the dark clouds, and yeah, it's even scarier.
Yeah, then you get into I forget the term for it. It's basically I just drew a blank on it. You can basically add dodging and burning to the clouds to basically create depth, and so you make darker sections a little more darker, and you lighten up the light sections to get a lot more contrast and texture in the clouds, and give it a black and white treatment. And yeah, you got yourself a cover shot for a horror movie.
Like luminosity masking in some of those clouds and that. I think you're right though, and then the black and white would really make that thing interesting.
Mm-hmm. Make it stand out. Awesome. Any other comments? We'll go to the next one.
That one's also mine. It was taken in an abandoned school up around West Point, Mississippi.
Hmm.
And that's in the library, just a bookshelf against the window with all the cobwebs. I actually named the image Where Education Once Lived.
I really like the image personally because I really like stuff like this. So this appeals to me. I do think I would prefer to shoot it under less contrasty light though.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was probably 1, 2 in the afternoon when we shot it.
Yeah, I would try early morning or late evening. Maybe I don't know which way it faces. Obviously, the sun is coming through the window, so it's probably setting in that direction. So maybe early morning when the sun is just rising, and then maybe I don't know. I'm just brainstorming out loud. Is a different angle to show more depth, like maybe the brown book on the far right. Start shoot that way, looking at the books with a little bit more window. I don't think anything on the bottom half does anything for the image. I think the image is the books with the cobwebs and all that.
Okay.
So kind of use that shelf that they're sitting on. For me personally, I would use the shelf that they're sitting on as the bottom of the frame, and then figure out how to incorporate what's out the window in with it. And then some creative processing because this is really, really cool. Like I'd be willing to pay you money to tell me the location of this.
And I think to Darren,
I
I
can
think-
probably drive you back to it, but to tell you how to get there.
I think to Darren's point, including a little bit more of what's outside of the window will help tell the story about, this old abandoned library.
Another thing you could do if you really wanted to get, go the extra mile, so to speak, is like I said, shoot it in really low light, but then have a figure with a black cape standing outside the window far enough away to where you can see them, but you're focused on the books and they're kind of a blurry, I don't want to say ghostly figure, but a ghostly presence, so to speak.
Okay.
Like if you got a friend or a wife or, anybody really.
If you go with the photo as is, if you try to take the highlights down and the overall brightness down and the saturation down, you might get a little bit moodier photo. But conversely, if you go with it exactly the way it is, maybe try to do like a fake sun, like you're really backlighting this and just blowing out the windows almost with a yellowish, spot with, you already have the streaks of the sunlight, but maybe you can throw a couple extra fake sun rays through there that are really diffuse or something like that. I do agree with Elaine saying that it's too bad there isn't just a little bit more outside, because then you could really enhance like a sun up higher coming down through or something like that. But certainly a couple different ways to go with this.
I think I would also try it as a black and white. I would probably throw it into Nick effects, silver effects, and go through their presets and see which one I liked best. This image has a lot of potential. I'm not discrediting it at all. I think it just needs a little work, a little fine tuning, and I think it would sing.
Okay.
That's pretty cool to find the books
Yeah.
like that with all those spider webs. That's pretty awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sometimes just finding the story in something like this is the images that have a story like this is a great find.
Like if you would have walked up to this scene and been like, "Oh wow, books," and started to open them, the cobwebs wouldn't have been the same, and it would have ruined the entire shot.
Sure.
So is this location pretty accessible for you then?
It is. It's probably 2 hours north of where I live. but
Okay. So is it some place that you can go back and that you'd go back and visit again?
I would. Yeah.
My eye keeps getting drawn to the book that's on the left-hand side and the white book that's the second from the right. And I keep thinking just close in shot, like a detail shot of just the cobwebs like consuming this book.
Oh, cool.
I think you get some great detailed texture shots, just using a little bit longer lens and getting in for like the details. And even the black book right there and the basically that stands out toward the front, the simply stated one, even that one, because it's got some great textures in the book cover itself with the cobwebs over it. I think you can do some great detail stuff in there as well.
Where are you in Mississippi, Keith?
I'm in Jackson, so West
Okay.
Point, 2.5 hours northeast of me. So
Okay.
Awesome. Any more comments? All righty, we'll move on to the next one. This is cool. Who did this?
Hey
one?
everyone, this is Jeff. This is mine. This is taken in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and this is the name's escaping me now, but it's the main river creek that goes through the park. And I was just down by the edge of the river and noticed a lot of the autumn color reflecting in the river and these cascades, ripples in the water as it went downstream. And just I spent probably a good half hour there taking photos of just different intimate scenes with the coolness of the ripples and the crashing of the water there alongside the warm reflection of the trees. So it was pretty cool to shoot for a good half hour, 45 minutes down there.
I like the colors of it, the blues and the golds and the warms and the cools, and they play well together. For me personally, I'm not seeing any area in the image that's in focus. Is there?
Yeah, it was shot at a slower shutter speed. So
I understand
yeah.
that. I understand that, but it's still, to my eyes, it looks out of focus. Like the details in the water, even though it was shot at a slower shutter speed, I'm not seeing crisp lines. I'm not seeing any place that it looks like it's in focus. Maybe somebody else, maybe it's just my screen.
Yeah, I mean, I was going for the more painterly look. So I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I like how the yellow frames the water on the inside. That's pretty cool.
And with everything being in motion and with it being kind of a slower shutter speed, I'm trying to figure out if let's just say like if the focus point was, say dead center or whatever, in that would it, with all of that motion, would it, I'm trying to think if it would come across as being really sharp, or would just all of that motion kind of take out the sharpness of it in general? I don't know the answer to
No,
that.
the motion is there. I mean, I see the slower shutter speed. This was probably like, I don't know, like maybe an 1/8 of a second or something. But even if the water is moving, there should be some definitive, in focus. I'm just not seeing that, but it could just be my screen, so it's hard to say.
But I like the motion and the colors, everything that was already said. It's really nice.
When I look at this image, I could hear the water already. I can feel how cool it is there.
I really like you caught the reflection of the yellow, or you've toned it that way, but it certainly looks like a fall picture, and that's what's very appealing to me.
Something that you might want to try just to play with to see how it does. The very right edge of the screen, there's a little patch of white, almost dead center on the right. I would almost bring that in just a hair to crop that little white out and play with that little white cap at the very top. Play with the crop on that and see if it creates a stronger image and brings you more toward the center if you crop that out.
Yeah.
My eye tends to keep going up toward that little white cap at the top.
Yeah.
Just something to play with and see if it changes how the image presents itself.
Any more comments? We'll move to the next one.
So this is mine as well. So this is up in the San Juan Mountains. It's South Mineral Creek, I believe it is. Took me a couple falls ago. Really cool spots. I was there pretty much by myself, nobody else there, so it was great. Couple different vantage points you can get up on that upper falls and upper pool, take photos from up there. And then this spot is pretty precarious. You're right there on the edge, but thought that the double drop with the bushes there framing it was a unique spot, and it was just a really cool place to photograph.
Yeah, cool image, good composition. I like how the water takes you from the upper left all the way down through the image. That's pretty cool.
And
Yeah,
again, kind of a longer exposure in that again with good motion there in the water, the way that shows, and just the tones of it, the aqua blue in that water, especially like some of that part up above, and how that rolls in there with the reds and the yellows and the greens. I like that.
I like how the gold comes around from the top and then just skirts around and comes down to the bottom from the vegetation. It's awesome.
Yeah, that natural vignette really keeps me in the photo. I mean, I'm coming down the waterfall, and like Carino said, the right-hand side, it just wraps you around and then it's kind of sends you back up to the top on those rocks. So this is really exceptional about keeping your eye in the photo.
Yeah.
Really cool composition. It's hard to tell in Zoom, like what's all focus, what's not. It seems like it's in focus, but I'm just wondering the leaves in the very, the bottom right corner. I can't tell if they're in focus or not, or if not, if maybe, a little focus stacking there would have added something to it, but at the same time, maybe leaving that, if it is out of focus, really draws you to the middle, which again, I think really accentuates the composition. Just hard to tell.
Yeah, so it's a good eye because this is a double exposure, because it was fairly breezy out that day, and tried to capture all the leaves, especially in that bottom portion, as much as possible within focus there. A couple of them probably I didn't quite get, and I think I did try to clone them out, and it just turned into a mess. But I did clone out a few of them out there, more out in the open water, because it was fairly breezy, so it was a bit of a challenge.
I'm pretty anal retentive about digital gardening. And so if this was my image in the pine tree on the left at the top, I might clone out some of those yellow leaves, even though we know they're there, but it's just so it's completely green on the left and yellow on the right. And there's not too many of those little leaves stuck in that pine tree, but that would be something that I would do that really makes hardly any difference, but maybe it's just me. Well, it is definitely me.
I have digital gardening. That's a good term. I like that. So for me personally, after looking at this image, my eye continually goes to the red rock behind the lower falls. I would remove that one.
You're talking about the big one there down the bottom?
Oh, not the one at the pool of the falls, but if you go like halfway up the lower falls, there's that red rock that's sticking out on the right side. I would remove that. I feel like my eye gets caught there when I'm following the line and the composition and I see that rock. It's like it gets stuck there because it's like, it looks like it's hanging there. How do I know what's going on behind there? And because it's all black on that one side, it'd be super easy to fix.
Yeah.
You could
See
just take
before,
down the
but now I can't
saturation on
unsee
that
it.
rock.
No, I mean, you could, but the
Or
fact that
darken
it's,
it.
the fact that it's there, I would just remove it so that it's not, so that your eye doesn't see anything. It has a smooth flow all the way down.
Pretty cool.
But yeah, great image. Don't let our little critiques deter you. I mean, very good image.
I
Yeah,
think it's good because then you get all these different minds with these different points of view, and I know it helps me.
Yeah, that's very good. That's what I really enjoy these exhibition nights for that very reason.
Any more responses? We'll go on to the next one.
This is my last one. This was taken up in actually the Palouse up in Washington there. Yeah, I mean, it's just it was one of our last stops. I was on a workshop, and the horses cooperated for us, and we're running back and forth. So I just thought it was pretty cool image to get these horses in motion. There was probably, I don't know, probably about 30 or 40 of them on this piece of land, and it was just firing away shots, and then this was one of the better ones that I got out of the group.
Yeah, I think I would have tried to have separated them. Maybe get maybe a group of them or an individual, or maybe back out and got a lot of them with the scenery in the back.
so hard to crop on groups of horses because you don't know where to cut off on either end. I like that you cut off on the tail on the left. Maybe it's questionable about cutting the head off on the right.
Yeah.
But I do like the pano crop because it really gives you a sense of motion. And I like that you start with light in the front, then it's kind of a little bit darker, and then they stand out from the background with the green. The light draws me further back, but that would subsequently I might darken down the sky so it's light dark, and really pulls you through the image as far as just from front to back.
Yeah, I like the motion, and what's already been said is the and I ran into this too when I was photographing horses a couple of years ago, and that is trying to find the right crop when there's heads in the way. But if you try and cut those two off on the left, then you end up cutting off the tail of that one that is full. And same thing over on the front. I don't know where you would crop that. You don't want to get it just to the point of the tail on that one. But I really like the two horses that are full right there, the two brown ones, and that, maybe it's even just a matter of cropping it back to where you have those two full, and then I don't know. Like I said, I'm just kind of talking my way through it as far as where the crop could be. But I love the motion, and the way you caught this is beautiful.
Hey, Jeff, if you ever do another workshop like this, or you ever shoot horses again like this when they're running, try to maybe slow your shutter speed down to between 1/8 and 1/2 of a second, and just pan with them. Even if the horses aren't in focus because of the panning, they'll still have this really cool sense of motion. Kind of like what you did with the water, except move your camera with the horses.
Yeah, I did try that a little bit. I didn't have much success, but didn't know with the shutter speed there.
Panning is hard. It's definitely like race car drivers, things like that. They're good at it, and it takes a lot of practice. But that would create. I like the image. I feel like the horses are they're like just static. They're like, I know that they're moving, but I don't get a sense of motion. So yeah, I would just try the panning.
Yeah.
I probably would fail at it too. I'm not good either. I try it with birds, but it's what I try. I would try it.
Right.
Yeah, I tried a few and it was pretty much a blurry mess, so I stuck to this.
You know, just for giggles, you could take this into Photoshop and put a horizontal motion blur and then mask it off. And then with a brush that's maybe 5%, 10%, something like that, go in and try to highlight bits and pieces of eyes and manes and whatever, just to try to fake a panning one, just to see if it would work.
Yeah.
But I really like the way you've got, like I said, that long pano crop, and the way you vignetted it to highlight that center horse is really, really, really well done.
Thank you.
Any more comments? We'll move on. This looks like up in Yellowstone. Whose photo is this one?
Okay, that's mine. And yes, it was shot in Yellowstone in the Grand Canyon area. And I took a ton of pictures with the water, but this one, you know, I was focusing on the wall and just kind of a impressionistic effect.
I like the tones and the fact that, you know, if you're in the location where I think you are almost every single time, all you see there is the waterfall, right? And you found something different and unique. And I like the texture and that in the hillsides. I like that.
And
Randy,
my
did
way of
you?
thinking, I look at this and I would eliminate the sky. I would just have that forest above there.
I'm not sure I mind the sky, but you know, on overcast days, Randy, did you ever, I mean, that's when you can really crank the saturation just to see what it does. Did you try any versions like that?
I did not.
Because on overcast days, boy, you can really take advantage of that, you know, a bit of clarity and a snot load of saturation. And if it makes your trees neon, then just play with a little bit of magenta in there to tone those down. But yeah, it's really cool that, I mean, what a great eye to pull, you know, such a mature area that's been photographed, like everybody else has kind of commented already, and found something new. So this is really interesting.
Dave, could you further define snot load?
I don't know what snot load is exactly, but I do know that there's 5 shit loads per crap ton.
Okay.
I had not heard saturation defined that way, but yeah,
That's why I failed my math test. Dang it.
I like that.
Hard to tell with the, you know, the different jagged areas of the skyline with the mountains and the top of the rocks there, but is it slightly tilted? And again, maybe it's just my screen or how I'm looking at it. I can't tell.
For me personally, I like the bottom 2/3 of the image where it's just those white and yellow rocks with the green with the snippet of green trees mixed in there, and it has a more of a graphic kind of feel to it. You know, the play with the yellow rocks and then that red, you know, the red clay and the green trees that are in that same kind of, they're all warm tones, you know, as far as those colors go. So for me personally, yeah, I just kind of take out.
I just put my hand up on that screen, just kind of blocking out that portion. Like you said, upper third, and I think you're right. There's a whole separate image
Yeah.
just by doing that. It's a whole different photo, and it does have a neat look to it.
Well, then it keeps you into those jagged cliffs that are in there, and those trees that just manage to make their way, growing through all those jagged cliffs on that steep, hillside. And
Yep, play with that a little bit.
Yeah, that's great.
Sounds good. Any more comments on this photo? And we'll move on. This is a cool one.
This one's mine as well. I love to shoot aspen trees in all seasons, and sometimes I have fun with panning upwards and seeing the effects. And I just kind of like the kind of blue peeking through.
Yeah, like with the vertical motion blur, where you have a shutter speed of probably what, like 1/25 of a second, or I don't know what it might have been, but yeah, I do like that. Yeah.
Or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it is neat with the tones in there too.
Yeah, in my eye, I would crop it down a little bit to get rid of that brown limb or branch on the left-hand side, and then also that green on the bottom right of the grass, just to eliminate those things.
I would almost say varying your camera motion as far as speed goes. It's one. It seems like it was quick enough to get the motion, but it was still slow enough to still see the knots and the textures in the trunks. I would almost say try it again with a faster motion to it, to where it would almost smooth that out a little more, and it gives you a little more painterly, abstract, a little more smoothness in the image.
Building on my horse deal, this is definitely one that would, if Chuck, taking Chuck's comments into mind, if you did a motion blur, vertically in Photoshop, you could certainly make it look like you did have a longer shutter speed or whatever. See, I always think these photos are cool with the intentional camera movement, but I'm only familiar with unintentional camera blur.
Yeah, this looks like one that I took that I didn't intend to take a motion blur.
This would almost be like mid sneeze.
It's just so hard to get the motion right.
It is, yeah, because it's
in terms of how fast or how slow to move the camera. And I've been experimenting, and sometimes like it's successful and sometimes it's awful.
Well, one thing you might try as well is using a 4 or a 6 stop neutral density filter if you're going to shoot them in during the day, and then not so much worry about how fast you're moving the camera, but make sure you get a long enough exposure so that you can go through the process, like you can go through the motion. I'm guessing that this was probably taken with like a very short shutter speed, like maybe, 1/10 of a second or something, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Right. So maybe if you shoot in early morning or late evening when the light is lower, and you can use a lower ISO and get a longer shutter speed, or, like I said, use a neutral density filter, go for something in the 1/2 second, or even maybe 1 second, moving the camera really slow.
Right.
There's endless possibilities. I'm just thinking out loud.
Susan, did you try it in black and white? I like the various colors, but I'm wondering if black and white would smooth out some of the different areas of color.
Nice image. Any more comments on this one? And we'll move on. Oh, look at that guy.
So this is mine. This was moose I came across last, well, it's August, so late summer, right at dusk. So super high ISO, which is way out of my comfort zone shooting or processing. I like the composition, but obviously it softened it up, kind of taking out a lot of the noise. So just curious, kind of thoughts on, I guess, composition and or different ways to handle the noise with that high of an ISO.
The one
Hey,
thing I
Matt,
would,
oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
go ahead.
I would just, the first thing that I would do is I'd crop the sky out.
Okay,
It competes. There's too much.
too bright.
And then I don't see the noise on my screen, but I've been enjoying Topaz denoise.
That's what I use on this. And I use it a lot, which is why I said it's kind of soft looking. So I'm just wondering if maybe overdid it,
so-
but maybe not.
Yeah,
I
I
tried
really
it, not
like playing
Topaz,
around
I'm
with
sorry.
I play around with all the settings in there, and until I get it looking the way I want it, there's tons of stuff, to adjust the sliders and whatnot.
I'm
So-
sorry, not Topaz. I use Nick Define on this, not Topaz.
Oh,
I
okay.
keep seeing the ads for Topaz, so it's stuck in my mind, but I use the Nick on this.
Yeah. I think I would crop out the gravel bar and crop out the sky and darken the highlights in the water. And I think that would bring more attention to the moose. That's what I would do if this was my image.
Okay.
So Darren, you don't think it would be, you don't need any near camera interest to that gravel bar, huh?
Yeah, I'm putting a piece of paper over it. I do not need to see the gravel bar.
Yeah, I was looking at it. What I would do is get that gravel bar, use my content aware tool and make that into water.
Oh, yeah, that I don't know if that would work very well.
That
But
would be-
I think it's too big of an area. You're good.
But I agree with Carino, having a little bit extra on the foreground. If you just cut it off at the gravel bar, then he'll be so close to the bottom.
You can, what you could try, and you'd have to experiment with it. You could select all that water on the lower portion everywhere around the moose, and then drag it down, just the water part, to like lengthen the part that's just water. That's probably not making a whole lot of sense, but you could stretch out that bottom water is what I'm trying to say, to cover up some of the rocks, and then cut some of the rocks as well.
Yeah.
There are ways that you could play with that. I do think you lost some definition in your trees with your noise reduction on that. And to Darren's point, yeah, I totally agree with bringing down the top part of the image and darkening up that water in the middle. And because you want to make sure that your moose, that's your subject, is to a certain degree, most of your, not most of your image, because he is a small moose, but that you're
Hey,
not
don't
losing-
talk about his
losing-
moose like that. It's a nice moose.
No, it's a really great moose. That's what I meant. In other words, I don't want him to just crop into just the moose. I don't want that, but cropping down more to like a panorama type view, I think would kind of
Okay.
help bring that moose and the sky and the background. So I just think we've got a lot of mountain.
Matt,
and
you
taking away
see,
from the moose.
you
That's
see on the
all.
left-hand side where the sky, the light blue and the dark blue all meet together.
Yep.
Yep.
So the very top of the bottom hill, I would just crop it right there.
Yep.
Okay. So I cut the sky completely out. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
make that where that darker hill in the foreground is coming up, put that right in the corner. Yeah.
You and I are on the same page, Darren.
Okay.
Any more comments? We'll move on.
I will in a second. It's Chuck's.
It's like the
This one's
highway to the
mine.
galaxy.
Chuck's image.
Yeah, this one's mine. This is Red Mountain Pass down between Uray and Silverton. Let's see, I shot this last fall. Just because we were down there for fall color. And turns out that Red Mountain Pass doesn't get a whole lot of traffic once it gets dark. And so the light trails are compliments of my wife. She drove the pass about 7 or 8 times for me as I was taking images. And so the foreground with light trails is probably 30 pictures or so, just her driving back and forth. And then the Milky Way is 25 shots stacked for noise reduction. Yeah, this is, yeah. And so and then just put it all together. So this was
So Chuck, did you just pull over on the side of the road and just put your tripod right there and that was it?
No, so where I'm sitting in this particular spot, so with all the switchbacks and everything on this pass, what I found to be the hardest is most of the switchbacks, the areas where you can stand, you're level with the road, which means that as a car comes around, you're going to take a headlight right to the face. And so this particular spot, there was actually a like a power substation behind me. And so I'm actually probably 15, 20 feet above the road. And I'm probably back about the same day. I'm probably back about 20 yards from the road. But my wife, basically to the left side of the image there, at the curve, there was a little pull off right there. And so that's where I hopped out and pulled my gear out and then just climbed the little hill on the side of the road and said, that's where I'm going to hang out.
I have 2 suggestions. The first is, I'm not sure if you need that shadow detail in the bottom right. I mean, I think it'd be fine if it was just black.
Sure.
And the second comment is, I hope you'll never post this in competition, so you kick my ass that bad.
This one may be coming.
It's fantastic.
The shadow detail down in the bottom corner, that's something that I did try and kill, just because as the vehicles come around the switchback, that whole area, through various shots, it's completely lit up. And so I was trying to go, pick through my images and mask out and get as little bit there as I could. So I have to go back and work on that a little bit more.
Chuck, I didn't hear the very first part of the description of this image, but so just throw me off a cliff in Oregon if I'm wrong, but
Sure thing.
I definitely, so I don't like the image because, for one, you didn't take me, but 2, actually I love the image, I'm just kidding you, but I definitely think the next time you do it, the car lights can't have any streaks in them or can't have any breaks in them.
Okay. Yeah, I fought that too.
If it's possible, and this is something that I've been thinking about on my own personal level, when you have one coming at you and one going away from you, it's easy to say, okay, we'll drive this way and then drive back.
Right.
But I truly think, and I haven't tested this yet, but if you could get 2 cars and have them drive at the same time, I think it's great. I'm having issues with the brakes in the lights.
Okay, so part of the reason why that like the headlight brake that's over there on the left, and then there's the headlight brake going away, coming down from on the right. As I was going through my stack of images, the thing that kind of hung up with me was as it's making that turn coming from the left, as it's going around to the right, going from headlight to tail light, I was still low enough to the road that I was still catching headlights almost straight on.
Okay.
And so that's where I would get like that's right in the area where I would get a blowout and it'd get like super bright. And so as I was trying to mill through the images and patch them together, that was just one of the areas that was like super bright.
But I think a clone tool would take you about 2 seconds to complete those lines.
So
Yeah.
I
you
was
want
gonna
to
say
know,
the same
you want to
thing.
know the secret to this, Chuck?
What's
You
that?
shot this at night, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you want to shoot your foreground with the lights on the car
At dusk.
after sunset. So they blend in with the landscape. They don't blow out your sensor.
Okay, gotcha. So do it earlier in the evening.
Yep. And that way, when that light comes around that corner,
It's
it's
not
not
as-
so bright. It's there, but it's not bright enough. It's still going to create the trail, but
Gotcha.
it's not going to blow your sensor out.
Gotcha.
Maybe
Okay.
what you should do is mount headlights and taillights on your drone and fly it up and down.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. I see people do that.
Yeah,
They put lights on them.
Yeah, I've done the light painting with the drone. Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
that's something that we'll play with in Oregon. I got a couple ideas on a shot out
Good.
there.
I got a new
Um,
location to take you to too.
So yeah, this is one of my few fall images that's
So-
together from this trip.
So Chuck, I missed, how many actual shots is this?
Oh, let's see. It was one longer one for the landscape for the mountain, 25 for the sky, and probably close to 30 for the light trails. So yeah, we're talking probably close to 60 images to make this.
And that was, you said that was your wife, Kathy, doing all the driving back and
Yeah,
forth?
Kathy was driving my Forerunner. So the reason why also I couldn't do longer exposures with the lights.
You're
I've
running
got
out of gas?
No, I've got LED headlights. And those LED headlights, you can basically see what you're having for lunch tomorrow.
Oh,
And so to get these light trails, she was driving with just parking lights on.
Oh, wow.
So that was the other thing I was fighting was I didn't have anybody else driving with like, old school headlights that were dimmer. And so we were having to really overcompensate with what we had. So
Did you try shooting one image for the car lights at like
Yeah.
ISO 50 or something?
I did
Like-
try the longer exposure. I don't remember exactly the details on it, but yeah, I tried to do it in one pass, and the left side of the image blew out on me just because it was so intense right there.
Yeah, I can see where it gets bright. Yeah.
Chuck, you could take, well, probably not. Never mind.
But go
I
ahead.
was gonna say you could try using like a shopping bag to cover your headlight to kind of filter it a little bit like you would with a flashlight that's too bright, but that might be a bit much.
I think
I-
Kathy was already on edge driving the pass with
I
just
know.
the
Poor
parking
thing.
lights on.
Poor thing. Oh,
I think Darren was already thinking that you're gonna have a bag over your head and push you off the cliff.
No,
You can just do like me and just don't wash your truck, and then
There you
there's a
go. Yeah,
layer of
see,
mud that builds up over the headlights. You don't see very well when you're driving at night. It would be nice
No,
for
but that would definitely tone them down. Yeah, I could do that next time. Rub some dirt on it.
I don't want to drive it once in the dark. Can you make that poor girl drive how many times? Oh,
She did that 8 times.
Oh,
yeah.
By the
just
time
one-
we
just one
finished, she
time
was
at
like, "Yeah, I got
sunset, you're
this."
Good to go.
Okay.
But I can't-
It's a
I can't.
fantastic image.
I can't see a dang thing in the dark, which is why I don't do any night photography. So,
You just need to get friends that'll drive you.
I would say yeah. So
oh no,
So
it's not even driving. It's like, no, I stumble all over the place in the dark.
Okay.
so next time when I go down here to do this next fall, I'll go ahead and I'll send out a message and see how many of you guys want to come down and drive for me.
You're just looking for somebody to drive,
Yeah, that's all I need. I just need somebody to drive that loop while I'm standing
to
there.
drive that route right there.
Hey, Chuck, what was the focal length on that?
It's a it's 14 millimeters.
14, okay,
Yeah, that was as wide as I could get.
okay, awesome image. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it is really nice.
Hey,
Gotcha.
Chuck, those trees down there, it looks like aspens, were they lit by headlights?
Down there on the bottom left,
Yeah, or
So there's
bottom center
no-
there?
there's a yeah, partially headlights, and then partially there's actually I actually cloned it out. There's actually a building down there. So around that corner to the left, there's a an old mine. And so there's like an outbuilding kind of over in that area, and it's got a couple of like spotlights on the outside of the building. And so I was able to get rid of that for the most part, but that's yeah, some of the headlights and a little bit of the residual from that building are what lit those trees up.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Any more comments? We'll move on. Whose is this one?
Hi, this is Kathy. And this is a good example of some of the difficulties we have when we find something neat to take a picture of. This was at the Denver Botanical Gardens. So you're restricted on how close you can get and the angles you can use. And between people and all the plants, it's difficult to, separate out the sculpture from the background. So it's just one of those things where you find something neat and yet the environment doesn't always lend itself to making a good photo. So I think just looking for comments on how to make it a decent photo, emphasizing the sculpture when you can't do much about the background or the angles that you have available.
I would use Dave's suggestion for most, couple times here tonight, and maybe try bringing the sculpture out onto one layer and then putting a blur on the background layer to kind of blur your grasses and that type of stuff just a little bit, like you had a more shallow depth of field.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if it is tilted a little bit to the left, but because of the reeds, I think if you brought it back to the right hand, just pull the top to the right a little bit, it might feel a little more straight. And then I might just add a little canvas at the top in Photoshop and the blue sky is easy to duplicate. So giving her this statue just a little more headroom might be nice, or do an unconventional crop and come down below that little white thing in her hair. That might be something you might want to clone out as well, but either make the crop lower into the headdress or give yourself a little bit more canvas on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's all the same tone from top to bottom. So if I were you, I might do some sort of graduated filter in some manner, just so it's not all the same tone. Make it, maybe darken up from the bottom all the way to her neck, and then do a radial filter to highlight the little children or something like that. Just little local adjustments just to dab things in there and make it more interesting.
Mm-hmm. I tried it in black and white as a way to blur out the background, but then that didn't work. It didn't differentiate anything for me. So the other thing I tried was just even a headshot, the top of the sculpture. But then I think you miss out on the uniqueness of the image or the sculpture itself.
Yeah, I've been real happy with the subject mask on Lightroom. And you can use
Yeah.
that on the image, and then the background, you can do whatever you want to with the background.
Heck, you could even replace the background with something else altogether.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so many things you can do to separate that and the background.
Yeah, I think when we're giving suggestions, I think we need to be conscious of, you know, I think it would kind of be good to know everybody's, like, I don't want to say ability, but everybody's feelings as far as how much editing, you know, because we could tell 10 suggestions, but to the photographer, they might say, well, you know, I that's not me. I don't want to do that. So, you know, but yeah.
I'm quite confident Kathy will process it in the way that she sees that meets her eye.
Kathy, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you have the ability to go in at a different time of day?
Yeah, it's the different botanical gardens. So, you know,
I've never been there, so I don't know when they open or what they're.
Yeah, you can, it's like 9, and then in the summertime, they're open till like 8 in the evening. And this was in the fall, I think it was late morning, so it was pretty bright sunlight.
Yeah, I just think a different, generally generally speaking, when I see images that people have questions about, most of the time, it can be resolved by shooting at a different time of day.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
Because you don't have the availability. I mean, you can't move around the sculpture. I mean, it's roped off, or there's a bunch of people in the background. You know, you can't trample on the plants, so you're limited as far as the different angles, but certainly you have the different times of day.
And you have different lenses, and you have different focal lengths, and you can stand up higher or you can get down lower. There's a lot of, I know it, as a photographer, it feels constricted when you're there, because you're like, there's a rope, I can't go anywhere, there's people there, there's people here. But, you know, always just kind of take a moment and think higher, lower, zoom in, zoom out type of thing.
Kathy, do you do much editing in either Lightroom or Photoshop, or is it pretty much out of the camera, or how do you play with your images?
I get it started as far as the editing, and then I turn it over to my technical assistant, Art. And he does the fancy stuff.
In other words, you have people for that.
Yes, I have a crew for that, namely Art. So I just wanted to get some ideas, and then I can direct him on what we can do.
Yeah, just play. Play around.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments on this image? Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Whose is this one?
This is me again.
Nice.
So this is taken, thank you, out in Rocky Mountain National Park, Bear Lake. Obviously the very tail end of Milky Way season. The wind started picking up right when I started setting up the camera, so it was a struggle to deal with the wind. But looking at the viewfinder in the camera, I actually kind of liked that log in the foreground. Then I came back and actually processed the image. Now I'm not so sure I like it. Maybe I should have moved to a different spot. Really just curious about the composition and if that log adds anything to it or takes away from the image overall.
Well, you got some awesome people here that do this.
I kind of like the log. I would almost start to do a little dodging and burning and lower the brightness on the lake, especially below the log. Start to, or even try to play with a vignette just to take away some of that bright white right there under the log. So that way it kind of comes a little more out of the dark and pulls you toward the center of the image.
Yeah, I like the log in there too with the corner. I was surprised. You said it was windy up in Rocky Mountain National Park. I didn't know that ever
I
happened.
know that's surprising, isn't it?
Right.
Is it ever not windy?
Right.
There's this one time.
And you have some pretty good light on the again the mountains and the Howlett Peak back there and the trees and so forth. Was there some moon that was cast?
There was
that light? Okay.
Yeah, there was a little bit of moon that night.
So is this what, a number of images or just one image or?
It was. I think I had probably 15. I think I actually took 25 or so for the sky, but had to take out a bunch of them with the wind shakes. I think I wound up with somewhere around 15 for the sky. And I believe I did a few different exposures for the foreground. I think I settled on this one was about 2 minutes, which luckily I did that first before the wind got too bad.
Yeah, it's amazing, all those stars. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? We'll move on to the next one. Who's this one?
That's mine. Photo shoot back around Christmas. We done at Southern Heritage Air Foundation Museum over in Tallulah, Louisiana. Done a pinup theme over there. And the young lady is Savannah Moore, and I forget what aircraft it was, but World War II aircraft that she's on the wings of.
I feel like the image is really, really bright. Like, I like the fact that she's bright, but I think it definitely needs some vignetting.
Okay.
I want my eyes to focus like on her. I mean, they already go to the white dress, but the airplane is really bright too. If you could just like tone that down a little bit.
In fact, in Lightroom, if you do the subject mask, it's going to pick her out real easy. And then you can just darken down the plane without any problem, just a little bit. And then, like Darren said, then add a slight vignette around the top, or slight vignette around the whole image. That would be great. And then, as Darren is pointing out, like that wing is really bright in front of her. So I would certainly do a graduated filter from the bottom all the way up to the bottom of her dress. And I mean, it's interesting that you can see the guns and stuff like that, but you don't need that white. I think Darren really touched on it, that, separating her a little bit from the background is the way to go. It looks like you've done a real nice job on the skin, and great pose, good eye contact. So the posing is very, very nice. I personally love these kind of environmental portraits.
We've been doing, so I run a group here in the Jackson area that we do this about once a month now. So introduce. Yes, sir.
Keith, I have two suggestions, but they're both about the same technique. So for me personally, I think I would like to see her a little bit further away from the body of the plane, and use a really wide aperture, like a 1.4 or a 2.8 lens, and really focus on those eyes and let the background just blur out.
Blur out.
Yeah.
The location, the museum told us exactly where we could and could not pose someone on the wings. So
yeah.
But as far as the 2.8, I was shooting Nikkor 70 to 200 2.8.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I wondered about that.
And I would, oh, go ahead, Darren. Go.
Another cool image that I think would be maybe if you could pose her slightly in a different position, and I don't know what that would be because I don't do this kind of photography, but focus on that lion's head tattoo on her arm, and then have her head be posed slightly different, but again, using a 2.8 lens or wider, really make sure that the tattoos focus, and then let her face and head kind of blur out, like create some depth there. Cause I really like that tattoo.
Okay.
I think I keep being repetitive about blurring things, but if you can't do it in camera because you're not tight enough in or whatever, just take advantage of the new Lightroom masking. And like I said, if you use the subject mask, not only could you either make her brighter or the plane darker, but you can then take like the background and you can make it darker and have less clarity on it. So it basically looks as if you don't have the sharpness. And then fortunately, since it's a mask, you can either add or subtract that mask with a brush tool and just touch it up to make it look like you had a 1.8 or a 2 lens or something like that. So take advantage of that new masking in Lightroom. It's just fantastic.
Okay. Good.
Any other comments?
My only point was, and it's kind of right in line with what Darren and Dave were saying with regards to focus. When I look at it, and maybe it's just on my screen, but I'm trying to see where the exact focus point was. And because to me, the letters and that on the plane look a little bit sharper than where I would probably want to have it be, like right on her face, eyes, mouth, and even like what Darren had said, the tattoo there on the shoulder. It looks like maybe the focus was just slightly further back towards the words and that.
Yeah, depending upon your skills, as Michael was saying, if you have writing in a picture, somebody's going to read it, and it takes away from the subject. So for me, in talking about digital gardening, one of the things I would do is, first of all, in Photoshop, clone out that yellow thing. I know it's part of the plane, and maybe it, you want part of it, but if you want more of it, include it. If not, I would get rid of that. Then I would consider, some of the rivets, getting rid of them. I know, if you're a plane buff, you're going to go, well, what the hell did you do with my rivets? But, anything that you can take out to distract from, the picture. The crosses are really cool, but the one that's next to her ear, on the right side of her, I take that behind her ear, and you can keep the ones on the left because it makes sense, but the one on the right, you can lose that. You can lose the cross next to the word serial number. I mean, and
Do you have the ability to get a little bit higher?
Yeah,
it looks
step
like
ladder would be cool.
Yeah, because it looks like you're shooting a little bit lower than her looking up, which is giving us a lot of the leading edge of that wing. Whereas if you could get a little bit higher and maybe a little bit more to the left, then you would take care of the concern that Dave has with the yellow letters. And then you would also eliminate, excuse me, some of that, the bottom part of the leading edge of the wing there, which is where all the white is, if you were able to get just a little bit higher, because then you would get more of the top of the wing than the bottom of the wing.
Gotcha. We were not able to that day. Like I said, it was in the museum, so you're.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how, one, I don't know how tall you are, and I don't know how tall your tripod goes, and how low the wing is on this. I mean, I know it's a low wing aircraft, but I don't know exactly, how high it is up off the ground, but.
This is an exceptional environmental, photo. I mean, this is, like I said, you've captured an emotion. the pose is fantastic. I love her in that kind of the white dress. It's you know, a nice combination with period 1940s. It's really, really well done. So we're just kind of nitpicking, certainly. But wow, what a great image.
Keith, be the guy that shows up at the next photo shoot with a 2-foot step ladder. See what happens.
The next one I can pull off, it's actually outdoor, just walking on the streets. So.
Right. But when you have a model that's posed, whether she's standing on the ground or the wing of an airplane, bring a 2-foot step ladder and your images will be way different than everybody else's.
Okay. All right.
Well, I'm short, so I'm always looking to try to make my tripod taller.
Don't extend the center column.
We're all trying to make our tripod bigger. Come on.
That's why I like about coming here. I always learn something new.
That's why I have a drone now. I can't get tall. I'm not tall enough.
Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Who's this one?
So this is me. This was a couple weeks ago. I mentioned I've been doing most of my photography here locally, but this was up in Rocky Mountain National Park. I got up and yeah, it was windy, as we talked about earlier, as this place can be. But
that's an excuse, right?
So I went back up to Dream Lake, which is just probably another couple 100 yards from where this one was taken. And this was actually on my hike back. I was up there for sunrise, and then on the hike back, I came across and sort of what caught my eye here were those aspen trees that obviously have lost their leaves. Kind of the way the light was hitting that. So I actually was down on my stomach in the snow when I shot this one.
Mhm.
I think I might like just a tinge more canvas on the bottom to highlight those trees, but I'm really loving the contrast you have here, Michael. It's really making it crisp, and the way you've lit up the aspens versus the dark stuff. It's really, really nice. I just wouldn't jam the aspens so low, and since it's snow, I would think that would be something really easy to add.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think you're right. There was, I'm trying to remember what it was, but there was a reason I was trying to get more snow in the foreground, and just the way the contour was, the way that the terrain was, I couldn't get much more, I don't think. But you're right. The way that it is with it being snow down there, it wouldn't be that hard to just throw some more with Photoshop, create more snow, I guess we'll call it. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the contrast there. I would just move it a little bit more to the right, so I would get that one aspen tree that's on the right out of that snowy area and more into the darker area.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
I love the coolness of Long Speak that you got there. That's great.
Yeah, there really weren't a whole lot of clouds out, or there weren't any like shapely clouds and whatever and so forth. But tried to do what I could with what was up there.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just for grins, did you try any sky replacements?
I didn't, but this is probably a candidate for that, right? As long as it doesn't then look awkward against whatever other,
yeah, I mean,
the other elements in the scene, the snow and so forth, that you're not throwing a lot of color in there that doesn't match everything else that's in there. So
I certainly wouldn't use a blue sky with white clouds, but I mean, they've got maybe you shot something that was interesting on one of your other trips of a moody, cloudy thing or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that might be worth a shot too.
Any other comments? We'll move to the next one.
Same morning. This was mine. So this was the wind was howling at this particular location. So this was Dream Lake. So this was earlier in the morning, just as the sun was kind of coming across and hitting some of the peaks. And this was actually taken with the an infrared camera, my infrared camera. And I got way down low. I did have it on the tripod, but I had that tripod sitting pretty low because I wanted, part of what I was trying to capture here was some of the things that were there in the foreground. And then, you know, fortunately, early in the morning, there were no clouds. And then this was like 10, 15 minutes later, and a few clouds showed up to kind of give it a little bit of something up there in the sky.
You could almost take some of these clouds, Michael, and bring it into the other one, since it was the same day.
Yeah.
Not that far apart. You'll get the same, you know.
Yeah, just so I have some texture over in that other image. That's probably right. And literally they were probably 15, 20 minutes apart from one another. So yeah.
Yeah, and you can modify it because the other one is clear sky. So if you bring parts of this sky in, you could like play with the opacity a little bit. So your clouds may not be as dramatic in the previous image that we looked at.
Yep.
Which would blend a little bit better with that, you know, with the style on that image. But
Right.
yeah, this is nice. I like it.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, really cool shot, Mike. I mean, for anybody who follows, Rocky Mountain on Instagram or social media, you see this composure a lot.
Sure.
This is one of the more unique ones I've seen. But really neat. When you said infrared, cameras. Is this one you've had modified, or was this?
Yeah.
Or both?
Yeah. So it's a mirrorless camera, the Nikon Z5, and I had it modified with the 720 nanometer infrared. So that camera now is dedicated to infrared. But
gotcha. Cool.
That's what I used there. I did a little bit of dodging and burning, a little bit of luminosity masking, and that to kind of add a little bit of texture to what already was there on the foreground, and then a little bit sort of up in the hills and that.
Cool. Yeah, seeing again, I haven't actually hiked up there yet, but I've seen this a lot on Instagram, and this is probably the best one I've seen, most unique. Even just the that one, I don't know if it's a log or ice, what it is in the foreground is framed much better than most of the ones you see out there. So very
there
well done,
there was one log that was kind of frozen into the ice that I kind of went over there, and then kind of looked for that area that had some of those rocks, and kind of where again bring the wind back up, but wind had kind of created some little small mounds and so forth in that.
It's probably really warm though, right?
Yeah, and this was just a few weeks ago, and surprisingly, my foot did go through a little bit, and but got wet. I would have thought that ice would have been foot thick, and it seemed like it was in some areas, but I got a wet foot up in there.
Wow.
I like the way that log points. I guess it's Hallet speak, but
Yeah,
it's really nice the way you've got the suggestion of leading line from the log up to the peak. That's really cool.
Oh, thanks.
Something that you may try is crop up from the bottom ever so slightly, just to get that little bit of snow off the bottom of the log.
Okay, I thought, thank you for pointing that out. I saw that, and I thought about that. That way it doesn't have that break, right? That way,
just that way you don't have that little bit of white down below it.
Yeah, and that way your eyes don't stop and kind of freeze right at that. And that way, if you did that, then you don't know how long that log is, right? You wouldn't know how far back that comes. But I kind of put the brakes on that by including that snow in there. I like your point on that. So.
The other thing I was going to say is kind of what I kind of was talking about earlier with the plantation house with the clouds. There's a video. Sean Bagshaw has a video, and it's called. He basically talks about. He calls it cloud sculpting, and it's using dodging and burning in different areas of the clouds to give them a little more texture. I would almost say, and you can take it as far as you want, but I wouldn't go too overboard. Just to do it a little bit more on those clouds, just to give them a little more texture and a little more feel.
Darken the darker parts of it, maybe brighten just some of the stuff, just to give it a little bit more contrast up in there and give it some more depth.
Yeah, it gives the clouds a little more depth and a little more texture to them.
And the luminosity masking makes that pretty easy to do, actually. So
yes, it's super easy to do. And like I said, Sean Bagshaw's got a YouTube video. You can look up cloud sculpting and it'll come up, and it's a great video to learn with.
Okay. No, thank you for the suggestions. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And the only other thing, Michael, keep an eye on your shadows, on your blacks.
Too dark in a couple spots where they went.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I don't know if it's just, between the Zoom and, my monitor, your monitor, that sort of thing. But I would just, some of your rocks in the snow, they just look, from my end, it looks totally black right now.
Okay. Yep.
So just double check those on your monitor.
Right. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Well, let's keep in mind that this is a modified camera for infrared. So Michael, am I safe to say that you're not going for a totally natural look here?
Yeah. The infrared is going to give you something that's a little bit different, and it does, kind of, I'll say, emphasize the contrast in certain scenes and that. So, sometimes you do get something that looks a little bit different than it would be, say, if I took the same image, and I did take the same image with the color camera and converted to black and white. And so you're right, it does have some differences. But to Elaine's point, the question is whether or not I should pull some of that, kind of watch those blacks, I guess, or whatever. So, but it does, you're right. I mean, with the infrared, oftentimes you get some, here you didn't have the light hitting the trees in a certain way, but when they do, those trees will go much lighter than what they appear in this one.
Right. Okay.
Nice image, Joe. Nice image. Any more comments? We'll move on. Who's this one?
That's mine.
It's cool.
I was over at Chatfield Lake State Park. It was freezing out, and I just liked the way the branches looked like they were reaching towards each other, so I took a picture.
And what's really, what I really like here, obviously, just the tones in there throughout and so forth, the shapes, the textures, but then also you got perfect separation, right, between the tree on the left and the tree on the right. There's no crossover of limbs, branches intersecting with one another. That's a good eye on that one.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like the colors. It's pretty nice. The blues and the yellow.
Yep. Those
nice
pastel colored mornings after it's so cold.
Yeah, and with the snow on all of those branches, that gives it a neat look.
Any more comments? We'll move to the next one. We're getting close to 9 o'clock. Who did this one?
This is mine.
Oh, it's awesome.
Rocky Mountain National Park, moraine, meadows.
How'd you get those grasses to bend like that?
They were like that. I think what happened was, it had snowed and then it had melted and they just laid them over or something, or maybe it was the wind. I don't know. Yeah, I had never seen them laid over like that before.
It's kind of cool how it snakes up to the valley.
Yeah. As good as beautiful, obviously, as the sky and the background and the light hitting back on those peaks and so forth. But I agree. But part of what I think really makes this one is that foreground. You really, all of that stuff in that foreground and the way the light, shadows, and textures are really good in there.
Thanks.
And those stars, that's amazing.
What was this? Was this recent, or is this from like last year, Dan? Is this?
No, this is recent. So this is when you're looking west, this is the Winter Milky Way with Orion.
Yep.
And so it's many images. It's probably 25 images for the foreground focus stack, so that I got all the way from the bottom all the way to the top of the mountain is tack sharp, and then it's probably another 25 or 36 images for the sky, and then stacked for noise reduction, and then blended with the foreground and the alpenglow that is just barely hitting the tops of the mountains.
Yeah, that's amazing. I should have known that it was fairly recent, because I think these all come up chronologically, regardless of who submitted them. So since it was after mine, it was probably just within the last few weeks or whatever. So
yeah,
really nice. Yeah.
Thanks.
Very nice. Any more comments? Go to the next one.
So this is another one of mine, and this was the morning we talked about earlier. Darren was out there, and another guy, Jesse, a friend of Darren's, was there, and happened to meet them over there at Chatfield. And this is just one I was taking a lot of images with my standard camera, but this is another one with the infrared. The light was glancing across from right to left. It was sunrise. And I just saw this path. There were some footsteps in it, and just kind of looked for a composition there. And again, did it in infrared, and then processed it in with the Nik Silver Effects Pro.
Hey, Michael, I have a question. When you shoot the image in infrared,
mm-hmm.
and then you process it, does it change the look of the image, or are you supposed to process the images that are shot with the infrared? Because I guess I've never seen a raw file, so I'm just curious to know, is like, you have the camera converted to make the images infrared,
right?
But then you process them, and then are you processing them to have more of a normal look?
So good question. So I am processing them to have kind of a getting closer to a normal black and white, but it's just the way that the infrared camera picks up, I'll say, absorbed light versus reflected light. It's going to look a lot different, especially when foliage is involved and when things like that are involved. So to answer your question, when it comes up raw, like when I pull it up on my computer, it has a reddish tone to it throughout. And there are ways that you can do color swap, and you can do other things to maintain some color or to introduce other colors into it and so forth. And maybe I'll experiment with that sometime. With the one that I had converted to the 720 nanometer conversion, it sort of leads itself to, it does sort of need to be processed. Just out of the camera raw doesn't look very good. So it does require some processing. And in my case, I've just done most of them as black and whites. There's other frequencies that you can get on those conversions that have even more dramatic black and white look to them, again, after processing. Or, you've seen probably like kind of the psychedelic looking images and so forth in that, where colors look just real wild. And those ones are from, one that's been converted to a different, I think it's like 560 nanometers or something like that. There's different conversions that treat the light differently as it before it hits that sensor. Kind of a long answer to, in my case, I find that they pretty much always do need some processing. And the Nik Silver Effects Pro, I've done some of them in Capture One also, but pretty much always just over to black and white.
Yeah, I used to shoot infrared film back in the day, and you know, when you developed it and you printed it, it looked infrared. And so that's why I was wondering if, you know, if you're shooting infrared and then you're processing them, are you processing them back to look semi-normal, or? So I was just curious.
Yep, sort of, but they're always still going to look a little bit different than
Yeah.
just a standard color image converted to black and white, just because of, particularly if there's light hitting anything with, I say foliage, it's the
Chlorophyll.
chlorophyll. Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's what is a absorb or a reflector of light, whereas like blue skies tend to go really dark gray, almost to black, just
Right.
because they are absorbing the light, so they're not reflecting any of it. So that's where you get some of that kind of difference in the contrast and tones with it. I'm still experimenting with it though. It's still something I
But Michael,
look
I
for
think-
different scenes and try and find different things that will work for it. And that. So.
But Michael, I think we're in need of a full presentation evening of this.
And I've done one, and I can further refine it. And now I have more sample images or whatever and so forth. And I can do that again.
So did you come across those footsteps, or are those yours, or what?
You know what? They might be Jesse's. Jesse was there, and he kind of walked up that path, and he was taking some shots kind of from back over in those trees. I'll say in the kind of the end of that path, or the further part that you are there. So I think those
Right.
might have been his.
Because I think it's really interesting that you have the leading line of the path and then a further leading line of the clearly drunk person swerving back and forth.
Yeah.
But I love when I get these kind of just pure landscape photos like this. But especially where you have a set of footprints, might be interesting if you can come across a person, especially if their back is to you, to have a version with a person and a version like you have, just to see, compare and contrast. Like I said, that's why I'll wait for the person to get out of my frame, but sometimes I've been told I should include people. I don't
No,
know.
I'm
trying to
guilty.
get used to that a little bit.
I'm guilty of the same, as that when I go out on the landscape stuff, I'm trying to not get people in there. But I think you're right. Sometimes the human element in a scene kind of adds to the scale and adds some interest to it. And I probably should do that more often.
So I've got two things. So down, if you follow the path down, right to the edge of the image.
Yep.
Just to the right of it, there's a little bit of grass there that's got hit with light.
Yeah.
I would clone that out or darken that up just to get that white spot off the edge of the image.
Especially on the edge, correct. Yep.
The other thing that I was thinking was, you're in these trees and it's almost like, they would almost create like a canopy. And I was thinking, what about playing with a vignette, but more in a horseshoe shape, to where you don't vignette basically the path, the edge of the path at the bottom of the image. Basically just do like a horseshoe from the trees on the left up around the top down to and the horseshoes are down and to the trees on the right, leaving the path as exposed as it is.
Right.
And maybe just darkening up the canopy a little bit to try and give it a little more mood.
Yeah, no, I like the suggestion. I'll give that a shot. I will try that. And I'm kind of visualizing it as you describe that and kind of seeing how that might be. And it would give you, it would lead the eyes more, it would bring that path more into what the eyes would follow.
Yeah. And this is kind of one of those images that where when I'm walking through, wooded areas or, stuff like that, this is one of those images that I'm constantly looking for. And so, yeah, I think the vignette would bring down some of the brightness up above, like up in the trees, and be able to bring you down to that path a little more.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because the eyes kind of wander maybe a little bit too much up into that upper part, with that being in some cases kind of the brighter area. So no, thank you. I'll give that a try.
Any more comments? Move to the next
Okay, this was taken off of Guanella Pass. I have this little secret waterfall that's not marked, that I like to go to, and never been there in the winter before. So this was just last week, and I decided to go and play with the frozen waterfall.
I've always been fascinated by the little structures that it makes when it freezes over. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And is this like a long lens that you just, I like the tight scene that you got in here with the details and so forth. And you have some of the rushing water and a little bit of the bubbles that are right there in that, I think that is, unless that's just other parts of frozen ice. This section where there's like that little channel of water that's flowing through right in the lower bottom.
Any other comments?
How close can you get into this, or what focal length were you using for this image?
Well, I have a 18 to 200 zoom.
Okay.
So just kind of zooming in pretty close.
Okay. I was just curious because like there's so many textures in this one little area. Just that you can, break them all into like, individual images and even, play with a tighter.
Yeah, there's almost, feels like there's almost too much going on.
Yeah, my eye kind of wanders around going, okay, what am I looking at? What am I, which part should I focus on? Where should my eye go? Whereas separating them into, and taking them into smaller chunks, like the icicles there on the left, those keep drawing my attention because I'm like, that there's got to be some cool details in there. There's, just the structures of them, that would be something cool to play with. And then like the water moving around the edges of the ice down there more toward the bottom right, that could be a whole nother piece. And so I think in my mind, I would almost say break this up into a couple pieces rather than the way it's shot where it's like all the pieces included. I would say individualize them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, neat shot though. I like these scenes that, and again, it takes an eye to, as you're going through some of these areas, to find something that is unique like this. I like that.
That's a cool area.
Nice. Any more comments? We'll move on here. Who did this one?
This is me. This is a recent trip to Yellowstone. First time out there in the winter. Lots of bison pictures, obviously, for whoever's been out there in the winter. So this one, curious about thoughts on composition. I really like the bison in the foreground, the painted face, as I would call it. Just curious if the rock in the foreground takes away from it. I was about 6 inches from the creek on my right, so I couldn't get any further right to it, but I kind of like the triangles and the composition that two bison created in the back, so I didn't want to crop in too much further. So just curious on thoughts on the composition on it.
You couldn't get any further to the right? You mean that water was cold? No, this is great. I love that. That the snow on the face really makes that. And I'm not getting caught up by that rock on the left, but I'll see what others say. But I think the light on that bison up on the top one up on the left is nice. I like the snow on the face on that one. standing in the water is kind of a neat part of the scene.
I think it is a little bit distracting, that rock on the left, because it kind of traps you in a little triangle. But what occurred to me was, what if you cloned in snow and made it white instead of brown? I mean, would it? Yeah, I'm just throwing, I'm talking and thinking at the same time, which is really scary. But I wonder if it would be a difficult clone, I would imagine, because you'd want to get texture, not just make it a white blob. But
Right.
I wonder if that would add, like a white path back to the buffalo or something like that.
Interesting idea.
Something else that on this one, I would have almost said taking a half step or a step to your left to kind of shoot on top of that rock. And that way, because the thing that's catching my eye is the bison that's up in the back left. It almost looks like he's growing out of the one there. And if you just shifted just a hair to your left, you may have been able to create a little bit more separation.
Okay, see what you mean.
Just, ever so slightly, and then that may have alleviated that rock there in the foreground as well. So then you were looking, you could have been looking more down the creek at the one that's in the water.
Yeah, makes sense. I was trying to get low, as close to the creek, as I could. So, and this was kind of a tilting landscape, or where I was at. If I went up left, it would have been a higher vantage, but still would probably be worth a shot.
Sure. The other thing is have a long lens. Like
This was a long lens.
That was okay. I was gonna say that.
Yeah, that's the thing is that rock is probably further away than you think. This is a 60 to 600 lens. I think I was probably around 350 or 400 on this shot.
Okay. I was gonna say, because the snow in the face, I'd have been scrambling for like 600-700 to try and get a close up of just his face too.
Yeah, I have some that are actually zoomed in just on their faces too. This is one I was looking for critique, but yeah, I got they're pretty fun to shoot when real close up when they have that snow all over their face like that.
Absolutely, yeah, it was a great shot though.
Thank you.
So Matt, is this like a snowmobile or a snow coach tour, or how are you in Yellowstone?
Actually, so we went out there. We were inside the park for 2.5 days. One day we paid for a tour out there, which turned into some guy, paid him a lot of money to drive us around on the road in a Suburban. So it was a little overpriced for what it was, but this is actually not far off the one road that's open this time of year.
Yeah, I like this picture. I would just crop up on his face and not worry about the other animals around him, because I love his face and that little sparkle in his eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got this one, a few others with the cropped in too. Definitely, but they make they're pretty photogenic, even though you can find them around here too. It's kind of a different experience out there.
Right.
Speaking of that, Michael, up there at Daniel's Gate, are they running
the
buffalo up there?
So the last 2 times I've been there, they haven't been. I caught them out there a couple months ago, but these last 2 or 3 times that I've been out there, I haven't seen them on either side of that road. So I don't know where they're at.
Any more comments here? We'll move on. This is mine. This is done over at Cherry Creek. And I was just playing around with the Topaz Studio and a sunrise.
So you're saying that that's a topaz effect there? Karina?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In the Topaz Studio, I like what it did to some of that, just the, I'll say, plants and the stuff in the foreground, the way that
it changes the
vegetation. It gives it that sort of that softer look, right? That painterly effect that we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
I've never used the topaz effects, but if it comes out as a mask, I would consider masking off behind some of these trees so that it wasn't just, like straight in the middle, there's a darker tree, and clearly it probably wouldn't have light that's on that side of the tree right at the light.
Mhm.
So I might, just as a version, try playing with masking some of the trees in some places, just to see if it could perfect the look a little bit more.
Yeah, you can mask in topaz.
So to
Sorry,
borrow
Chuck, I cut you off there. I'm sorry.
That's right. I'm actually gonna borrow your key phrase here, your digital gardening. There's two coming out of the bottom left corner. There's two smaller sticks that are kind of pointing toward the center of the image. They're a darker brown. I'd almost clone those out, and then there's a on the bottom, in the bottom right corner, in between those two trees, there's a lighter branch kind of going between them. I would either clone that out or darken that down, because it's a little bright for that corner. Since everything else in that corner is pretty dark, it kind of stands out.
See, that's why I'm glad you guys are here. I learn something all the time. You make me look at things that I don't normally look at, and that's pretty awesome.
I like the way that the sun, the way, it's not just like, a lot of times you see it like with a tight aperture where you get that sun burst or whatever. I kind of like the way that this one has those rays that go all the way through the scene like that.
Thank you. Let's go on to the next one. This is one of mine also. This is over at Greenwood Village at their Christmas display.
I'm guessing the texture in the water is ice.
It was starting to freeze, yes.
Okay.
Did you bracket it all, or is this just a one shot off deal?
It's two shots. One shot I did when I brought the zoom back, and you can see it in the trees back there, in the lights of the trees.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So I did it in two shots because some of the whites, some of the yellows were just too bright, and then some places were just too dark.
Hey, babe.
Did you play with any of the white balance to see? I'm sure these trees are actually yellow, exactly as depicted.
Yes.
Because your clock face is in fact white.
Right.
But did you ever play with the white balance just to see?
I just kind of kept it in my mind. That's what I saw, and that's what I was gonna make.
Yeah, no, it's cool the way it is. I'm just always looking for 2 or 3 different versions sometimes, just to see. One sometimes surprises me.
And that's why I'm glad that we do these things, because like I said, I'll go back tomorrow and I'll listen to you guys, and I try different things, and
Right.
It really helps out.
Something else that, and like I said, this is nitpicking. Your clock in the top center, because of I'm assuming it's brighter than the Christmas lights.
Mhm.
It almost blows out. So you can play with it a couple of different ways. One, you can take an exposure for it, so it's not blown out, so that way you can see more of the clock face.
Mhm.
Or play with a highlight brush and kind of tone it down a little bit, just to take a little bit of that stark white out
Yeah,
of
now
it.
that you bring it up, it really does. It look blown out.
Yeah, on my presentation, I've kind of outlined how to take highlights down off of a face. And you can certainly do it the same way as Chuck is explaining on architecture or whatever.
Mhm.
And then I would, I know the reflection on the ice is there, but it draws my attention. I would either tone that down or clone it out. Of course, there's going to be somebody that says, well, it should have been a reflection in the ice, but it's, it looks like you maybe have toned it down as it was, but I would even take it down even further.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Thank you. Then we'll go on to the final one. This one's mine also. I was down on the Platte River a couple of weeks ago and saw this fox run across the road. And he stopped and posed for me.
That is very, very cool. It's awesome.
Cool shot. I like the black and white effect on that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether to do it in color. Color was real nice too, but I thought I'll try black and white and see what it looks like.
And with the snow coming down, I like that. The fact that you caught it in that kind of a setting. It's nice.
Yeah, it snowed pretty hard that day.
Yeah, it's awesome shot. I would say two things. One, there's just below his right eye, there's that snowflake there on the where it's coming from his eye down to his nose.
Mhm.
That bigger white one, I would almost say clone that one out and then use maybe play with how Dave was talking earlier about how you can mask the background and then using the subject mask to where, and then putting a slight blur or just taking some of the sharpness off of the snow on the branches and everything, just to kind of soften up around, that way more of the focus comes into him, whereas you're not like these branches that are over here to the left. There's almost a distracting amount of detail in there, and maybe just blur it to kind of soften that up a little bit, just to make sure that the focus goes into him.
And what about the animal? You think I should darken him?
I thought that. I mean, you could play with it. I think I'd play with this. I would almost say play with the softness first and see it. If you create a little more softness, that maybe he pops out more. But you can always use a little dodge and burn or a different black and white filter in the Silver Effects, the Nick collection, and because they've got different, basically all the different starting points, and you may get them a little darker to pop them out of that snow a little bit more.
Yeah, along those lines, if, like Chuck said, you just pick something like a neutral, like more silver, or even the starting point that they give you, and then the key is always going down to those filter panels. I think you have to scroll a little bit, and once you hit one of those colors, then you have the ability to use the slider bar and just back and forth, and then just tone it to taste.
To see what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with Chuck on his points there. The other couple things, I would keep an eye on your snow, especially right to the left of the fox's chest. A lot of that looks blown out. I mean, it's a lot hotter than the rest of your snow. And the other thing I'll point out, because I think maybe softening the snow will fix some of the other stuff I'm seeing. On his front leg, the one that's just slightly back that the piece of grass is sticking up on, it's like you've lost maybe some texture or something in there. It just kind of looks like a little gray blobby or something back
Okay, yeah, I
there.
see that. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I would definitely clean up the piece of grass and then maybe go a step back or something and either mask out that area so it does, so you don't lose your detail and stuff in there when you went through some of your processing. But then knowing that you like to do some of the painterly effects and topaz or stuff, I don't know if maybe that's a result of, you know, maybe some of that work or not.
Yeah, I don't think I did the topaz on this.
Okay. So yeah, maybe just, you know, go in and see what's going on there. But other than that, yeah, it's really, really great capture on the
Like I
face.
said,
and
you guys
stuff.
always help me. I appreciate it. And that's the last one. The final photo.
All right. Well, I think it was a great night. A lot of great images and a lot of really good feedback. These exhibition nights are always fun because you get to hear so many different points of view on what what one person sees and everybody's take on it. So yeah, it was a good night, guys.
Yeah, these are always real helpful. And thank you, Carino, for running the show there as far as downloading the images and sharing your Lightroom screen. Thanks for doing that.
Well, what's the best way to learn it is you got to do it, right?
Right.
Oh yeah.
And thanks, Chuck, for all the and everybody else for great comments. I like you said, I learn a lot on these, not just on my images, but on the comments on everybody else's too. So it's great.
Yeah, thanks. One of these days I'll remember to submit some images.
All right, everybody.
I appreciate the variety of the images. They're all so different.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes it fun.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for all your help and all your suggestions. That's, like I said, it's every time we have one of these nights, I always go away with something new.
All right, Chuck, you ready to call it a day?
Yeah, unless anybody else has anything else to add to it, we can call it a night.
All right. See everybody. Stay warm.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks.